Channel 4. It's Whissel time. Your host, Kyle Whissel.
Here we go.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. You are listening to Whissel Weekends here on AM 1170. The Answer. My name is Kyle Whissel, your host with Whissel Realty. Joined as all by Mr. Jason Hall, Team Home Loans.
Good afternoon, sir. You got a big smile. See, you can't see that, but I can see.
They could see it on Facebook Live. So if you guys enjoy the show, you don't want to wait till Saturday to hear the show. We record the show every Wednesday at 12:30. If you guys want to watch the show live, just pull up the Whissel Realty Facebook page. We go Facebook Live in the studio. You could see what the beautiful faces behind these voices look like on Facebook Live, so you guys can always check that out. And then the show airs Saturdays. Well, where are you listening to us right now? At 3 o'clock.
If you're listening and maybe not listening Facebook Live, because I know we get a lot of people that do follow us right now.
Yes, sir. They don't want to wait.
Yeah.
They want the news.
And they want to know what's going on with the Whissel team and what's going on with Whissel Weekends. So, what is going on, Kyle?
So we're going to have a guest joining us in a little bit. He's going to be calling in. This is one of the busiest guys in San Diego right now. His name's Johan Mechanic. He is the owner of Seabreeze Vacation Rentals, one of the biggest vacation rental companies here in San Diego, and is also the president of Share San Diego, which is one of the groups that is supporting vacation rental. And there's been some big news in that industry in the last week. And so when Jonah joins us, we're going to talk about that.
How's somebody busier than you? Right? Like my wife and kids and staff can't think there's anybody busier than me until they met Kyle Whissel. And now they're like, there's nobody busier than Kyle Whissel. And now you're saying Jonah's actually a busier guy.
He's got a lot of stuff going on right now. He's you're going to hear about it. I don't know if you've been watching the news, but there's some big changes that are coming to the vacation rental world. So also in studio, we've got Lawrrence Mudgett with Safer Law, one of our go-to attorneys, and Lawrrence is going to, give some perspective on what's been changing with vacation rentals when it comes to the legal side of things.
And Lawrrence, tell us real quick again, what do you like to refer as specializing? I mean, law is law, but
landlord-tenant. I do bankruptcy work too, but really
But you're specialized landlord-tenant.
Yes.
So, vacation rental is very specific because that's the new thing. And Kyle's, you're the first person that kind of opened my eyes to, like, why are you staying in a hotel, Jason? We go to Charleston, South Carolina. Let's stay in a 3-story, downtown condo that's right there. And it was actually cheaper than us renting. And we had 3 separate guys, that particular one, and we all had a different level. And it worked out great. We had a great time. I literally just got back last night from a vacation rental at Havasu, Lake Havasu, and an amazing home. Brand new, was just built in March. I was the very first person to actually even get to stay in the home outside of his personal friends and family. And what a blessing it was for me and my family. I brought 11 of us out, and we had just an amazing time. And all my nieces and nephews kept walking around going, look, they were FaceTiming all their friends. Look at this house. Oh, my gosh. Look at the boats in this guy's garage. They were $200,000, 2 boats totaling $200,000, just sitting in the garage.
Because one boat's not enough?
Yeah. Well, you got buddies, right? So everybody's got to bring their own boat type of thing. And in texting back and forth with the owner, he says, Jason, here's the good news. It's not my boats. They're my buddies' boats, but I get to ride free. And I'm like, wow. That's the best life.
That's
right?
a good setup there.
Yeah,
he
has
you could
the
store
house.
your boat with me for free.
Yeah.
But I get to use it.
I get to use your boat.
Ooh.
You would do that, right? I would do that with you.
Which side of that? I don't want to be the boat owner. I want to be the storer/boat user.
All right. So if I bring the boat, you'll bring the house.
Yeah, I'll find a place to store it.
So
I don't want to own a boat
so
anymore.
when you actually get the
So
house
much
in
better.
Big Pear or Lake Arrowhead, I can bring you the boat.
Yeah, we could do that.
All right. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
You heard that live here.
So how was Havasu? I haven't been to Havasu in a long time.
But wasn't it supposed to be any 100 or 106? But that's like a lie.
It was
Somehow
106 at 9 a.m.
Yeah, it was literally 106 at 9 a.m. So packing up last night at 5 o'clock, it was at least 109. My wife had heat exhaustion, literally collapsed. We had to put her in the car, get her tons of water. It takes a while for the AC, of course, to cool down because your car is like 120, and all it does is recirculate the 120 through the AC compressor, condenses it down to maybe, 120 to 115 to 110 to 105. And, once you get going, I mean, now everybody's got to turn it down because I got it down to 60 degrees within, X amount of time. But wonderful time, but it was definitely warm. And when you're packing up and everybody's, little bit more stressed out when it's 110 out. It's never easy. But the good news is I rented a boat. The bad news is I had to rent a boat because my boat's in the shop. But it was real easy. I just literally gave the boat back to the guys, didn't have to wash it, clean it. All I had to do is get all my stuff out of the boat. So hint to those that are out there, rent a boat. It's sometimes much easier for, I think it cost me $900 for, 2 days. I'd rather do that than I think have my own boat now. I'm really honestly thinking about the Airbnb and renting cars versus owning cars.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting ready to do a RV trip, a little family RV trip together, and there's a website called Outdoorsy, and they do that for RVs. So like people, when they're not using their RVs, they offer them up. You could rent their RV and take that on, so you don't have to go to, I think there's a couple bigger companies out there that do it. You don't have to go to those guys anymore.
You don't have to go to the one that's stamped on the side. We are a rental. This is a rental vehicle. Stay away, right? Because as a boat owner, as I'm driving a boat and I see the RV with the big stamp, rented RV, I pull over.
Get out of the way.
I'll stop
they don't
and
know.
pull over and I see like 3 of them coming together.
Yeah, so there's sites for that now, and there's sites for boats too. So if you want to use a boat, there's people who, when they're not using their boat, they're offering them up for people to go take them out, and they'll literally drop the boat in the water for you. You just show up, hop in the boat. When you're done, they meet you at the dock and they throw it back on the trailer.
And that's exactly what happened here, guys.
Yeah,
I mean, literally, I jumped in the boat. He backed the boat down. I took off. 2 days later, I came back, threw the boat back on the trailer, and he dropped me off at my truck, and I was gone. It was great.
I love it. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm excited to do a little RV trip. I'm excited to not have to get our own RV. I think it's cheaper. Unless you use stuff all the time. Absolutely. RVs, boats, you're better off short-term renting them than you are actually buying your own.
Jonah on the air? Is that what I'm hearing, Kyle?
Yes. So we've got probably one of the busiest guys in all of San Diego calling in right now. Again, I'm going to let him deliver the news of what passed yesterday with San Diego City Council, but big changes coming to the vacation rental market in San Diego, or at least there was something passed. I have a feeling there's going to be a little bit of a attorney play that comes in here. But Jonah, you with us, my friend?
I am indeed. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Jonah, you are the owner of Seabreeze Vacation Rentals, also the president of Share San Diego. For those that are listening to the show, give us the update on what went down yesterday.
Absolutely. So what went down, it was actually Monday evening, is that City Council voted to adopt an ordinance which restricted short-term rental permits to primary residents only. And I stress that because, quite honestly, there's so much confusion and so much debate and questions right now as to what actually happened and what that means and how do you define a primary resident, how do you prove primary residency. I've heard, rumors circulating from people that say, am I going to have to provide the city of San Diego with my IRS tax records to prove I'm a resident? And quite honestly, the best answer I can give everyone is at this exact moment, nobody knows. And I'd be even willing to say that those on city council that voted for this still don't even know.
So it sounds like normal politics, right, Jonah? This is Jason Hall. I happen to be a mortgage lender for nearly 30 years. I know what primary means in the mortgage side, but as somebody who's used, HomeAway literally last night and Airbnb a few weeks ago, and like both, I like short-term rentals. I think it's a really positive thing. Is what they think they passed saying that you can only do short-term rentals if you're actually the owner of the home and you live there? Is that kind of what it sounds like?
So 2 different questions there. And again, I just want to make sure I'm going on record and saying the details are so fuzzy at the moment that I can only give you my best opinion as to what this all means. As the following months and unfortunately years unfold and we try and get through this and really figure out what it all means, I'm sure we'll have some more clarity. But what you're asking about is twofold. So being in the house is considered home sharing, and that's completely different. So home sharing has been separated from what they call whole home rentals.
Okay.
So home sharing is completely allowed with minimal restrictions. Again, those are still a little fuzzy as to what those restrictions are, how it's going to qualify, what's not going to qualify. Granted, there are some loopholes that they want to make sure they tie up. But in essence, home sharing, for the last 2 or 3 years, I think everyone has agreed that home sharing is okay. And council didn't really ever have a problem with home sharing. So when you live in the property and you're renting out a few rooms or whatever it happens to be, that's considered home sharing. And really, there's been no change to that. The big change has come with what they consider whole home rentals, which is when you're renting the entire house and there's not a host on site.
Right, which is the only way I appreciate. Which is the only way I do it. Right, that's me. But
I got to assume this is through no basis of fact at all, but I have to assume that most people traveling, especially those traveling with families and in larger groups, they want the whole house.
Sure.
Right? You're not looking to bring grandma and grandpa and all your grandkids to a house and have someone sharing a room with you.
Yeah.
You're looking for the whole home experience. So I do know for a fact that, for example, Airbnb, over 75% of their San Diego business is whole home rentals. So it definitely makes up the lion's share of what we call the short-term rental business, is whole home without a host on site. And that's what was drastically impacted by the vote on Monday. And what they're saying is the only way you can get a permit to participate in whole home rentals is if you are a primary resident of San Diego. Now, the other question you asked is, does that have to be the owner of the house, or can that be a renter of the house? Again, another wrinkle, because primary resident does not need to be the owner of the house, at least as it's defined currently. If you have a 2-year lease on a property, then you're renting. That is your primary residence. So by definition, someone who is renting a property, let's say in Mission Beach, could, as long as the landlord and owner of that property provides him the ability to do so, to in essence sublease, he could put that property on Airbnb and rent it out as a whole home rental for 182 days of that year as a lessee of that property, not as owner of that property. And right. I know this is all really confusing. I'm trying to really clarify, but it is incredibly complicated at the moment.
Wow. And the reason you mentioned 182 days, I assume, is because primary residence, he would have to live in it 183 days, at least 50+%. So for those listening, that's the reason breaking the 365, Jonah, right? 183 primary, 182 short-term rental. So just want to
that's why we bring Jason on the show. He's the math wizard. Yeah. Thank you for dividing by 2, Jason. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
I mean, that's the common sense conclusion that we're all coming to. But, this is politics and this is city council. And to say that common sense is a factor we saw on Monday really doesn't play into it. So, again, it brings up the question is not only what is a primary resident, is a primary residence a rent? Can it be a renter? Does it have to be an owner? But how do you prove that it's your primary residence? If you are an owner, for example, and as this is a real estate background show, the majority of our clients are what we call second homeowners. They live in Seattle, they live on the East Coast, they live in Canada. One day they'd love to live in San Diego and they plan on retiring here. And they come down, they bought a house and they use our house quite regularly. And when they're not using it, they have us manage it as a short-term rental. It's quite common. By default, that owner is not a primary resident. So by default, all of those second homeowners that we've all dealt with and we've all sold property to over the last 20 years, as the ordinance currently stands, would basically be able to use their house, but when they go back home, would have to lock it up and let it collect dust.
Well, here's one thing I know. We know if this goes the way that you sound like it's going to go, it could actually impact and will impact prices, right? And that people listening right now and those of us involved in real estate of San Diego real estate, we don't want to see values go down, right? So this is, what can we do? Who should we contact?
That's a great question. Again, it is a little bit premature, but I would say anyone that wants to get involved, visit our website, Share San Diego, and you can at least, if nothing else at this point, you can register with your email address and you can let us know, I'm interested, I want to help fight the fight, I want to protect my property rights. Here's my email address. As you guys get more information, please keep me updated.
Yeah, could you imagine, Kyle, if you can't rent out your place, what might happen in vacation rental areas?
I believe, just from what I read, I'm not the expert here, but there's about 11,000 vacation rental properties in the city of San Diego, and about 80% of those are non-owner occupied. So those are non-primary residences that could be affected by this. Is that about right, Jonah?
That is about right, but I'll give you a more shocking statistic. There are about 1,200 short-term rentals currently in the Mission Beach market. We all know when it comes to short-term rentals, Mission Beach is ground zero. It's where people have been traveling for decades, almost a century, families going on vacation. So there's about 1,200 in the Mission Beach area. Of those 1,200, 95% do not qualify as primary residents, which means that if this goes through and this passes and this is implemented as it currently is written, that stock of 1,200 short-term rental units will go down to under 100. We will lose over 1,100 short-term rentals in Mission Beach.
Wow.
Now, the question is, and if you ask the opposition, we've asked before, that's on average, that's about 3 rooms per rental in Mission Beach. Some Mission Beach properties are smaller, some are larger, but on average, you basically take the smallest and the biggest, average all out. You got about 3 bedrooms per rental. That is a loss of 3,300 rooms per night in the Mission Beach area.
Which, if you own a hotel, you're happy about that. So I imagine that's your opposition, right? Or at least a big part of it.
It's not ironic that the largest hotelier in all of San Diego is the primary person behind Save San Diego Neighborhoods.
Wow.
When you peel the layers back, it's pretty easy to see who's funding this thing. The California Hotel Lobby Association, and this is not rumor, this is fact, because they have to make this all public, spent $250,000 on a smear campaign just last Thursday to air commercials against short-term rentals. We are going up against a Goliath here, and that Goliath is the hotel industry.
Yep.
There's a better product on the market right now. The hotel industry has had a lock on visitor accommodation for decades, and now the consumer has a choice, and they're terrified because the choice is better. Why would you rent a hotel and be stuck in a room when you can rent a house with your own living room, your own swimming pool, your own kitchen? You don't have to pay them valet fees. You don't have to pay them internet fees. You can do what you want when you want. There's a better product out there, and the consumer is speaking, saying they want that product, and the hoteliers are terrified, and they should be.
Yeah, it's just like what Taxi, was upset about Uber and Lyft and all that. So
That's crazy.
It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, so again, you're listening to Whissel Weekends here on AM 1170 The Answer. We're talking with Jonah Mechanic with Seabreeze Vacation Rental Share San Diego. Jonah, I've also got one of my attorney buddies here in studio, Lawrrence Mudgett. Lawrence, you got a little bit of a take on this?
I do. If I could, though, I just wanted to ask Jonah a question. How does the city plan on enforcing this? I mean, are there going to be officers counting days that people are there? Is it just a situation when neighbors are going to be turning in neighbors? Is there anything that was passed that addresses enforcement?
It seems like a silly question, right? Like, that's what they should have thought of first, is before we pass this, let's look at whether, first and foremost, it's legal, which I'd love to get your opinion on, but also, is it enforceable? Now, the mayor's draft proposal, which is what we were hoping was going to get approved, made much more sense. But most importantly, the mayor's proposal raised an additional $6 million that was supposed to be bookmarked solely for enforcement. So what the mayor's office was going to do is take this extra $6 million, which was not a tax, it was a fee. And as a fee, it can be bookmarked for a specific area. And they were going to put it towards enforcement. They were going to hire 8 more police officers. They were going to hire a staff of 4 to 5 people, and they were going to start a division of short-term rental compliance downtown that would be able, to your point, they'd be able to monitor this. They'd be able to make sure when there's a legitimate noise and nuisance complaint that they have officers available to come address it. If people are having parties and weddings and drunk in public and all these horror stories we hear, there was going to be $6 million of an enforcement budget to keep neighborhood noise and nuisance to a minimum. And keep in mind, that's not only for vacation rentals. That's for all neighborhood noise and nuisance. That's if the guy living next door to you is on a long-term lease, but still creating noise and nuisance. We were going to have a phone number to call with a dedicated resource that was funded $6 million a year to help. Well, when you eliminate 95% of those permits, all of a sudden that $6 million basically goes away. So to your point, now there's no money for enforcement. So how is the city going to enforce it? That's a great question. I would love for someone at the city to be able to answer that question.
Wow. That's all I can
This
say
is
here,
crazy,
Kyle,
huh?
Lawrence. Yeah,
This is crazy stuff.
It is crazy. Lawrence, did you have opinion on, do you think, I mean, again, he's just giving you general stuff, but do you think the city can just lay down the law like this? Kind of like the Dodd-Frank. Like, people all thought Dodd-Frank was, not legal, and a lot of things in Congress and Senate that have come out over the last 8 years, but
Well, they've done it. It's just a matter of, I think it's probably just the beginning, not the end. These things go to court. My take on it is I think there's clearly an equal protection issue. I mean, I'm just the landlord-tenant lawyer, not the constitutional attorney. But, under the 14th Amendment, you treat people equally under the law. You can't discriminate. And this seems to segregate out-of-town owners from in-town owners. So if Kyle and I live in East County, are fortunate enough to have a rental property in the beach community or something like that, well, we can't do this short-term rental arrangement per these rules because we don't live there. Now, if you live there, and again, to his point, what's primary residence, this, that, and you can only do it part of the time, seems to me pretty arbitrary, but who knows?
wow.
It's interesting you say that because Jan Goldsmith, who's the previous city attorney for San Diego, came to the meeting on behalf, to be honest, and he was very clear about it, on behalf of Airbnb and HomeAway. They hired him to present his professional legal opinion. So for anyone listening that is opposed to us, that's the first thing they're going to say is, well, you guys hired him. So yes, we did, but he's still an attorney and he's still the previous city attorney. And he brought up that exact argument right there. He said there is an equal protection aspect here, and it is the job of city council to justify why you're going to take away property rights from one owner, but grant that same property right to a different owner. And the example he used is, let's take one street that's all zoned the same, with one house, let's call it property A on the left-hand side of the street and property B on the right-hand side of the street. Well, the owner of property A lives in his house for 5 months and 3 weeks. The owner of property B lives in his house for 6 months and a day. Same property rights, same street, same zoning, both pay their taxes. You are going to tell property owner B that he is allowed to now rent his house as a short-term rental, but you're going to tell property owner A that because he only lived in his house for 5 months and 3 weeks, he is not allowed the same property right. That is unconstitutional, and most importantly, there's no merit for it. The city needs to be able to give reason as to why they're assigning a property right to one owner but not to a different owner, and there's no justification for it. To your point, it's completely arbitrary. This 6 months or primary resident or whatever you want to call it, what makes it okay to tell one owner who lives in his house for 6 months and a day you can do something, but another owner who lives in his house for 5 months and 29 days that you cannot do the same thing?
Yeah,
It's
that's mind
absolutely
blowing.
nuts. What's your site again? Because I want people to go to the site, maybe register, just at least where they could, keep up to date on what's going on, get information from somebody that apparently is busier than Kyle Whissel, which I've never met anybody busier than Kyle Whissel, by the way, Jonah. So hats off if you're busier than Kyle.
It's been a busy couple of days, and unfortunately, to your point, I do feel this is just the beginning, and this is going to be a very long road. And yes, we do appreciate any support we can get. It's the website is Share San Diego, and we would very much appreciate anyone who's interested, anyone who wants to be kept up to date. Of course, help us with what is looking to be a long-standing battle to sign up, register, so we can keep you informed and let you know how this all progresses.
I love it. Again, you're listening to Whissel Weekends, AM 1170, The Answer. And Jonah, just got a little bit of time left here. What do you want to happen here? So obviously they've thrown the first blow, and as of this minute, this all takes effect starting July of next year. Now, of course, there's going to be some legal battles that take place. What do you guys want from your side?
Well, there will be some legal battles that take place, but also keep in mind that nothing, to anyone listening right now that currently owns a property and participates in the sharing economy within the coastal zone, even if city council passes and approves, nothing can go into effect in the coastal zone until the California Coastal Commission approves it. And the history has dictated, while there are no guarantees, that California Coastal Commission is adamant about preserving visitor serving accommodations in our beaches and bay area to visitors of all economic backgrounds. And if you go onto the California Coastal Commission website, that is one of their mantras. So, again, take that Mission Beach example. Well, of the 1,200 visitor serving accommodations, this current ordinance would wipe out over 1,100 of them. While there are no guarantees, and I'm purely speculating, I find it very hard to believe that an agency that's main concern is preserving visitor accommodations is going to allow 95% of the visitor accommodations in Mission Beach to be completely wiped out. So, again, this is going to be not only, and again, speculation in regards to legal battles that are going to follow. The Coastal Commission still needs to weigh in, and there's probably going to be quite a lot of back and forth between Coastal Commission and City. So to say that this is going to come into effect July 1 of next year is probably very unrealistic. I think that just with coastal alone, this is going to take quite a lot longer than that.
I love it. And then, Jonah, do you think, news like this is obviously going to rattle some of the owners out there? Do you think this is going to cause a lot of people to put their homes on the market? Do you think a lot of people will take a wait-and-see approach? How do you see that playing out from your perspective?
I would hope that people don't put their house on the market. I think that's incredibly premature at this point in time. The ink has literally not even dried. In fact, the ordinance hasn't even been officially written yet. We got a lot of time ahead of us to see how this all plays out, what sticks, what doesn't stick, and how it really affects each individual owner. I have a lot of owners that do use their home quite regularly as a vacation rental. I think those guys are going to end up being fine. There's a couple owners that are what we would call investors. There's not many of them left, quite honestly, but they're looking to rent their house as much as possible out of 365 days. And the answer I give them at this point in time, obviously, don't make any moves, don't do anything yet. But you know what? Down the road, if you have to sell your property, I got a great answer for you. Sell your San Diego property, 1031 exchange it into another Southern California neighborhood that's much more vacation rental friendly, such as Carlsbad, Encinitas, Solana Beach, Newport Beach, San Clemente, Dana Point. The list goes on and on. All of these cities already have common sense ordinances on the books that have been approved by Coastal Commission that aren't going anywhere. So at the end of the day, at the end of this fight, if you're an investor and you're looking to get more out of your property, 1031 exchange your San Diego property. And my good friend Kyle, not that I'm trying to pump you up here, I'm sure we'll be able to find you a property in North County that we'll be able to manage on your behalf.
Yeah, I just sent you a couple killer ones that we've got a client coming in town this weekend for. So, yeah, there's some good deals out there. Carlsbad, Encinitas, especially Solana Beach. I love Solana Beach.
Why is it the higher cost areas are smarter politicians? Why is that? Honestly, I don't know. I'm a San Diego native. I'm nearly 50 years old, Kyle, but I'm sitting here thinking all the areas, and I played Pelican Hill. We stayed up there for our President's Club just last month. They're in Newport Beach. Amazing community. Unbelievable. I mean, there's $10 million to $50 million homes on that hill. Why is it Jonah or Kyle or even Lawrence here in studio, our attorney, why is it that they're smarter there? Is it just, politically speaking?
This is politics. Politics never makes sense. Let's just leave it at that. There's just no common sense with what they do.
I might open a big can of worms. Is that what you're about there?
Yeah. I know from my perspective, I hope that you guys can prevail here, because if if this sticks, there are going to be some owners that make some moves happen, and I don't think that's necessarily going to be good for the market at all. So I'm really hoping that you guys really do well here.
The unfortunate thing is, there are two extremes here. There's a black and white. There's obviously the long-term residents, and then there's the investors. But what ended up happening is an entire group of homeowners got forgotten about, and that's really the group that we care about the most, which are the second homeowners, right? To your point, these are people that bought a house in San Diego, and they use it throughout the year. And some might use it for a month, some might use it for 6 months, but they come and they go. They have their car in the garage, they have their clothes in the closet, they lock it up. It is their home away from home. And when they're not using it, they rent it out. It's quite common and has been for over 100 years. What ended up happening is these second homeowners got grouped in with these investors. And should this go through as it is, what it means is these guys that own second homes, they'll be able to use their house. But when they leave, they're only going to have one choice. They're going to lock it up, and it's going to collect dust. And all that means is that the local restaurants, the local retail stores, the local economy that really benefits off of them opening, these second homeowners opening their door and letting tourists come in, stay in their house. Those tourists go out, they go to the beaches, they go to the restaurants, they go to the shops. They support the local economies. Well, what's wrong with that? That whole equation, I just don't understand why anyone has a problem with someone owning a second home by the beach, using it when they want to use it, and renting it out when they're not there.
Crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either.
Yeah, I got one last question, Jonah, and then we got to head to a break. What is the definition of short term with what was passed? Is it 3 days, 7 days, 30 days? How many days?
They didn't define it when it was passed on Monday, but previous codes, and if you look at the San Diego code right now, it's less than 30 calendar days is what's considered a short-term rental.
Okay, so the corporate rental stuff where they rent them on like a monthly basis, that based on what's out
Correct.
there now likely won't be affected.
That has not been even brought. Any rental of 30 days or longer has not entered the discussion for the last 3 years, and I don't foresee that entering the discussion anytime soon.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Well, Jonas, really, really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day. If you guys want to get involved in help Jonah's group, sharesandiego.com. If you want your voice to be heard, if you want to be a part of trying to change what was passed by City Council earlier this week, strongly encourage you to check out Jonah, sharesandiego.com. Or if you are looking for a nice vacation rental, these things are all still going to be rented for at least the next year and probably much longer. They have some of the most amazing vacation rental properties in all of San Diego. So Seabreeze Vacation Rentals, definitely check them out. Jonah, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Yeah, Kyle, just real quick, wanted to confirm it's actually sharesandiego.org.
.org, okay.
Not sharesandiego.com. My fault for not our clarifying that.
All right, sharesandiego.org. Thanks so much, Jonah. And we're going to head to break here on Whissel Weekends. When we get back, we're going to talk a little more with Lawrrence Mudgett, Safer Law. I want to get a little more of the legal perspective on this vacation rental thing. You're listening to Whissel Weekends, AM 1170, The Answer.